Welcome back to Chasing Whimsy, a cozy little corner of the internet where we read books and it's magical, not stressful. Today we're going to talk about how to survive the dreary, cold, dark winter months, how to thrive and enjoy and really romanticize the season. We've got 5 different topics we're going to cover, so grab something cozy and let's get started. It is a truth universally acknowledged that cold, dark winter days require copious amounts of tea. So start off by pouring yourself a hot beverage, whatever you like: tea, coffee, hot cocoa with marshmallows and whipped cream, something to warm up your soul from the inside out. Inhale deeply and watch the steam rise as you allow yourself a moment of stillness. Slip on your coziest slippers, bows optional, or fuzzy socks, and grab a warm, cozy, fluffy, soft sweater. Winter is all about embracing the coziness. It's about staying warm inside while the cold stays outside. Pull out all of your favorite sweaters and sweatshirts and flannel nightgowns and sheets and blankets. Get cozy, build yourself a cocoon of coziness in your bed, and stay there reading with your tea. Once you're all bundled up, it's time to park yourself in front of the fire with your warm tea and your cozy blankets. Just be still. Allow yourself this time of the year to relax and rest and get ready for the season ahead. Most of the time, I don't use recipes. I sort of look at what we have and I wing it and hope for the best, and it usually works out. But during the winter, I love pulling out my cookbooks, especially my literary ones or books that are based on my favorite TV shows, and make the most hearty, heartwarming meals I can find. This is the season for desserts and soups and breads.
We'll probably sit around and cook some soups and eat bread and desserts and just get all fat and sassy.
This Prairie Kitchen cookbook is one of my favorites. It is filled with the most heartwarming, delicious recipes that are perfect for winter. They're so cozy, and the pictures throughout this cookbook just pull you in. They make you want to spend your day in the kitchen making all of the warm, delicious things to get you through the cold winter days. I love just mixing up a whole bunch of vegetables. If I just start sauteing onions and veggies, I can usually come up with something really delicious. Here I was making a coconut curry just with what I happened to have on hand. I used onions and peppers and carrots and beans and all kinds of delicious spices to bring together this sweet and spicy coconut curry that ended up being absolutely delicious. Heartwarming meals don't have to be complicated. They just need to warm you up from the inside out and make you happy. When it's way too cold to go outside, or it's gotten dark at 5 p.m., or if you live somewhere like I do where the air is literally unbreathable at times, cozy hobbies are the key to survival. Cozy, simple things that you can pull out and spend half an hour to an hour or less or more, whatever you've got, just creating something. I love to watercolor, but sometimes during these months where I'm a little bit more frustrated and anxious, drawing is only going to make those things worse. So I love this watercolor coloring book. It is perfect to just sit and play around in for a few minutes, and it's not stressful. I love doing this while I listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or I have a favorite YouTuber up and I watch while I create. Other cozy hobbies that sort of serve the same purpose could be coloring. Coloring books are so much fun, or origami, or puzzles. Sitting over a puzzle during the cold winter night is one of my favorite ways to spend time. We usually will put on a cozy movie or again, listen to an audiobook. Once I've sorted the pieces, the kids will usually join me and we'll put it together. I am not a great puzzler. 500 pieces is where I max out, and usually 300 piece puzzles are my sweet spot, so I don't get frustrated or just get tired of looking at the same puzzle for days on end. But I know that people love to do giant puzzles and will just leave them out and sit and put them together over the course of a week or a month or the entire winter. But I'm not that girl, and I need to move on from one puzzle to another. But puzzles are such a great way to just sit and have conversations over a cup of tea while you put something fun together. And now for my favorite part, books. Books can either be a great escape, or they can help us further romanticize the season by reading books that are set in winter, that are really magical. When I think of winter books, I think of like Winter Story from Brambley Hedge. I think picture books and children's books, and those ones do a marvelous job of really romanticizing the season and making me wish that I was a little clothed mouse living in a tree. They're just so magical. But I think that what everybody needs during the season is a little bit different. Some of us want to romanticize, some of us just need an escape, some of us need to get deeply lost in a story, and some of us want to embrace the darkness of the season with some darker books. So I don't read a lot of dark, heavy books, but I do have a few suggestions for ones that I have enjoyed. So we'll just dive right in. I have about 10-ish books, I think, something like that. And I've divided them up into categories. So this first one is heartwarming but bittersweet stories. So the first one, perfect to kick this off, is Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. I love this book. This book lives in my head, and every winter the characters all come back to me, and it's a warm hug of a book. There is a moment of tragedy that takes place in the book that is sad, but it's ultimately okay. It's not the kind of book that's going to tear your heart apart. I don't appreciate that. January kind of brings out that seasonal depression and anxiety for me, and so I need to escape into cozy stories, into lighthearted, just sweet, fun stories. So Winter Solstice follows Elfrida, who is 62, I think, and is a retired stage actress. She moves to this small town and ends up making friends with a man who has just had his life struck by tragedy. They become friends and companions, and over the course of the story, other people come into their lives as well, including a young woman with a broken heart, a teenager escaping an unhappy home, and a stranger who arrives during a snowstorm. This is a found family book at its finest. It takes place throughout the winter. It's cozy, it's heartfelt, it is very character driven. It is slow. It's the kind of book that you want to just savor. It's not full of adventure or anything. It's a slow, cozy, beautiful story about found family and flawed people, and I absolutely love it. The next one is Once Upon a Wardrobe, and I just read this one in December for the first time, and I absolutely loved it. In this one, we follow Megs, who is 17 and attending Oxford. Her little brother has a heart condition of some kind, and it is a known fact that he's going to die. It's not a matter of if, but when. And he asks her, he reads C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia and is absolutely obsessed with it, to the point that he begins reading it in his wardrobe. And he asks Megs to ask C.S. Lewis where Narnia came from. What is it? Where did it begin? Where did it come from? How did he come up with it? And so Meg does. She approaches C.S. Lewis, who is a professor at Oxford at the time, and she asks him to tell her about where Narnia came from. And what ensues is a collection of stories from his life. If you've read Surprised by Joy by C.S. Lewis. You'll recognize a lot of the stories that he tells. But what ultimately unfolds is Meg's is not, she's a very analytical person, very logical. She doesn't really believe in stories. And C.S. Lewis changes that over the course of this book, and she realizes that the answers that we seek in life are not all found through math or science, but through stories and heart and love and connection. This book is so beautiful. I just read it last month, and I cannot wait to read it again. It's lovely, and it's definitely a love letter to writers and stories and the magic of books. And it also is just one of those that if you've ever wanted to write or tell your story or even just read more, it will absolutely inspire you to do that. And then the third and final book in this heartwarming / bittersweet category, I try to stay away from books that I feel like you're probably already familiar with, all of the classics, but it would not be a heartwarming bittersweet winter category without Little Women. This book is another one like Winter Solstice it's a slow, cozy story. You're following the lives of people. You are growing with them and learning with them and mourning and grieving with them and celebrating with them. I know everyone knows this story from the movies and such, but if you haven't read the book, I highly, highly recommend it. It's beautiful. It's filled with sisterhood and family and romance, even if you don't like the way that it goes. But Little Women is a beautiful winter book, even though the whole thing doesn't take place at winter, and a lot of people like to read it at Christmas time because it begins at Christmas. It's a great one to get you through the sad, dark winter months. I highly recommend reading this one by candlelight with a cup of tea and your coziest blanket and your fluffiest sweater. This is a book that requires all of the cozy, happy, warm things. For our next category, because it's closest to me, I'm going to do middle grade. I feel like middle grade books do a fantastic job of helping us escape winter or romanticize winter, similar to the way the picture books do. So I'm going to start off with The Long Winter. I know I talk about the Little House books a lot, but they really are my favorite, and I listened to this one on audio, the audiobook by Cherry Jones, narrated by Cherry Jones, every winter, just about, because it helps me not so much romanticize winter. Maybe what it is that their winter is so awful that mine just feels better. But I love this story. I love what it takes for them to get through the winter. I love seeing them just be grateful and find ways to be creative and honestly survive through this horrible winter filled with blizzards and insanely low temperatures, and Almanzo braving the weather, risking his life to go and bring food to the people. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, and probably one of my favorites in the Little House series. If I had to pick a favorite, it might be this one, just because it's a book that feels like winter. It's slow and it's dark and it's cold, and I really, really love this one, and your kids will probably love it as well. Next is Sweet Home Alaska. The next two books in this category both take place in Alaska, so they're kind of a romanticizing winter, really embracing the season and the mood of the season. But in this one we follow Terpsichore. This book takes place during the Great Depression, when families were being offered money and support to move to Alaska and settle there. This book is a historical fiction, and it was a lovely read. My kids loved it. I loved it. Terpsichore and her family move, and at first she's not sure that she wants to, but once they get there she really falls in love with it. But her mother does not. She is so homesick. She wants to leave, and so Terpsichore decides that she's going to do whatever it takes to help her mother fall in love with Alaska. She is a little pioneer girl in her own right, and this one is a tale of friendship and bravery and growth and learning to thrive whatever your circumstances. Love, love, love this book. I think it's very underrated. I don't see it around a lot, but it's definitely a good one. And then the last one in this category is The Year of Miss Agnes. This one also takes place in Alaska. in a one-room schoolhouse. So Miss Agnes has just arrived. She is taking over the school, and our main character, Frederica, who goes by Fred, which I love, she has no hope that this teacher's going to stay. The teachers come, they stay for a minute, they leave, some don't even make it through the school year, and the kids are not learning, and school are not magic for them. And Miss Agnes comes and she changes everything. She teaches them the magic of writing and stories and art. I think at one point they even like put their books and things away, their textbooks, and she replaces them with stories. And I love a good story. I don't think there's like a word for it, but a good story where a teacher comes in and changes a child's life or many children's lives. Another example of that one is Fish in a Tree. That is another beautiful example of a book where a teacher comes into a child's life and changes it for the better. And those kinds of stories always just, they get me. And this one is really, really lovely. It's quick. It's 113 pages and very large font. So it's one that you can get through really quickly. You can read it in a sitting if you wanted to. But yes, The Year of Miss Agnes. You see a teacher who doesn't get frustrated with kids who are behind because they haven't had consistent learning, who just really inserts magic into their lives and teaches them to all love learning and love books. And it's a really, really lovely story, a beautiful story packed into very few words and pages. Okay, next, for those who like to get lost in the darkness or really embrace like the dark season. I know, for me, October, November is when I like to read more dark academia, the more like witchy books, the more magical stuff. But I know for many, January, February, these darker winter months are a time when you really want to embrace that. So I have a few books for that. The first one is actually 3 books, and technically there are 5, but we're gonna go with just the trilogy, and that is the Discovery of Witches, or the All Souls trilogy. There are now 5 books that have been published that all take place in this world, but these are the 3 main books this is the actual trilogy that started it all. And now there is not a prequel. The other 2 books take place after the 3rd one, but they also bounce back and forth a little bit. This book follows Diana. I can't think of her name, Diana Bishop, who is a witch. She's attending Oxford. These books are fantastic because you get the Oxford dark academia vibes, but you also get magic and mystery and creatures. Diana's a witch. She meets Matthew de Clermont, who is a vampire, and then there are also demons throughout the book. And the science and the history in these books is unreal. Like, this is a fantasy series, but you will feel smarter for having read them. There's a companion book that goes with it where she talks about a lot of the manuscripts and books and history that she references, and it's fascinating. These books are incredible. I think book 2 is where we have, they're back in time. I think it's book 2. I think it's this one. It doesn't say. Yes, they travel to Elizabethan London, and so you meet actual characters from that time. There's so much history in these books, and this is a world that I love to get lost in. When I don't know what else to read, or I'm in a slump, or I'm just in a season of severe anxiety and I need to escape, these are what I will turn to time and time again. I absolutely love them, and I think that just about everybody will love them. There's something for everyone in these, and they're just a great story with fantastic characters. The next one is the book that made me realize that maybe I do enjoy dark academia a little bit. My feet are going to sleep, so I'm going to adjust here. I have my Paddington blanket on my lap. This was my first, I think, aside from the All Souls books, I think this was my first actual foray into dark academia, and that is A Study in Drowning. I read this book when it first came out, which was not this past October, but the one before, and I think I've since read it twice more since then. It's one that I get something more out of each time I listen to it. It feels like a dark academia meets fairy tale vibe. We follow Effie Sayer, who is in an architecture college, and only because girls are not allowed in the literature college. She applies for this contest to rebuild the mansion for, I want to say her favorite author. It's her favorite author who's just passed away. It's his son posts this competition to rebuild their mansion, to revamp it. So she ends up winning, and she goes, and as the story goes on, you realize that she's got a lot of darkness within her. A lot of things have happened to her. Trigger warning for this book: there is some abuse, sexual abuse, but it's not graphic. It's Effie's memories and trying to come to terms with what has taken place. There's nothing graphic or descriptive, but it is clearly implied. But you watch Effie go from being this helpless, sad girl into this strong, capable woman. She meets Preston Hallery when she arrives there, and together they're trying to uncover sort of the secrets of this place, more about the author, more about this book, and Herod is what it's called, and where it came from, where it originated. Effie has memorized this book, and there are dark fairies and curses, and it's a wild ride of a book, and the sequel comes out this year. I guess it's important to note that Effie is there in support of her favorite author, and Preston is there trying to prove that he's a fraud, that he didn't actually write all of these books, that someone else did. And they end up teaming up to sort of help each other out, but they discover a lot more than what they bargained for, and it's got magic, it's got fairies, it's got the dark academia vibes, it's got a strong female protagonist, it's got a sweet romance. It's a good one. This is YA, but I don't think that it reads like YA. It's very, very beautifully written. It is darker, like I said, but I'm a pretty sensitive person, and it wasn't too much for me. And I really, really enjoyed this one. This is a great book to escape into. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, had a little camera mishap there. The final book in this category is Where the Dark Stands Still. This is I think it has Polish origins and reads like a fairy tale. It is dark and beautiful and full of magic. We follow Liska, who possesses magic in a time where magic is considered monstrous. It's an abomination to possess magic, and nobody wants to be affiliated with anyone who happens to have it. So she's been hiding it her whole life, and something happens, and she can't take it anymore, and decides to go into the forest to seek out he's like a demon warden. They call him Lesha. And I only know that because I listened to the audio. This is a great book for audio because there are so many words that I would not have known how to pronounce otherwise. So side note there. But so she decides to seek him out and strike a bargain with him, which others have done before. And every other person who has ever gone to strike a bargain has not returned. And so she's under the impression that they weren't able to uphold their end of the bargain, and that's why they failed and never came home. But she's determined that she is going to. She finds him, he offers her a bargain, she has to stay with him and take care of him and his home for a year, and then he will help her with her magic. As time goes on though, she's starting to realize that this Lesha is not the monster that everyone has made him out to be. He's not who she has been led to believe he is. She sees other sides of him. She sees all of the good that he's doing for the forest, and everything that he is essentially responsible for. And then as this unfolds, this is one of those books that it's unpredictable. I don't think I ever would have seen it. I didn't see it coming. I don't think I ever would have assumed that that's the particular direction that things were going to go. That it was a lovely surprise, a dark surprise, but it's mysterious, it's dark, it feels like a fairy tale. It follows a woman who goes from being helpless and feeling like there's something wrong with her to embracing exactly who she is and what she possesses, and she becomes this strong, woman who realizes all that she truly is capable of. It's a beautiful book. I think it's another that's underrated. I don't see it around a lot. It is a bit slower. It takes time to get through. It's another one that you need to savor and give yourself the time and space to appreciate, but absolutely beautiful. Love it. The romance is lovely in the best way. I do believe this one might also be YA. I feel like when I turn to like a darker book, it tends to be YA because I can't handle the super heavy stuff, but this one is really beautiful. Highly recommend on audio. And then the final category in our books today is, I just wanted some that were lighthearted feel-good books, and all three books that I have for this category are completely different from one another. They have nothing in common aside from the fact that they are lighthearted and cozy. So our first book is Arabella by Georgette Hare. If you are a Jane Austen fan and you have read all of her books so many times that you can recite them from memory, allow me to introduce and recommend Georgette Hare. She wrote her books in the 40s and 50s, I think, but they don't feel like it. They feel like they came straight out of the Regency era. They feel like a Jane Austen novel. They are so much fun. This one in particular, I'm in the middle of it. I haven't finished it, but I love, love, love it. My favorite Georgette Hare book is Venetia, side note. So you could look into that one. That one's really, really good. The romance is romancing in that one. But in Arabella, we follow Arabella Talent, who is the oldest daughter, I think, of a vicar, and she is being sent to London for her first season in hopes of securing a wealthy husband to support her and her siblings. On the way, there's a mishap, and she ends up meeting, is he a lord? Beaumaris. I think he's a lord. I think he's Lord Beaumaris. I'm having a mind blank. Mr. Beaumaris. We'll just call him Mr. Beaumaris. Anyway, and she ends up overhearing him kind of mocking and talking about her, and it makes her angry, and so she decides that she's going to pretend to be someone she's not. And so she tells everyone that she is a wealthy heiress, just looking to find a husband. So now, of course, every eligible bachelor is knocking at her door wanting to be chosen by her. The fortune hunters, those who just want to look good in society, everybody is after her. And Beaumaris is fully aware that she is not who she's saying she is. He knows exactly who she is, but he decides to play along. And as he sort of watches everything unfold, he realizes that she's sort of endearing and that he might have some feelings for her, and it's so precious. This book is dripping with wit and charm and all the things that you love about a Jane Austen novel. It's adorable. It feels sort of like a Cinderella story, and it's yes, heartwarming, lighthearted, just a delight to read. And I highly recommend Georgette Hare again if you are a Jane Austen fan or you just love anything set in the Regency era. These are so much fun, and I love that they have started redoing the covers because the old ones were terrible, and these new ones are really cute. Okay, next, again, the books on this list are totally different from one another, but next is Legends and Lattes. If you have not read this one, this was my introduction to cozy fantasy, and I have never looked back. I dove in head first. I loved this book. I think I read it in just a few days. We follow Liv, who is an orc. I have this cute edition that I may or may not have ordered from somewhere. I don't remember where I got this one actually, but I had to have the hardcover editions of this one and its sequel or prequel. We follow Liv, who used to be an assassin and now just wants to leave that life behind. She wants to settle down. She wants to slow down. She needs a different life. And so she settles in this town, the name of which I cannot remember. It's okay, it doesn't matter. And she opens a coffee shop. Like, what? How perfect is that? So this is a place where people have never really heard of coffee. She happened to like try it somewhere on her travels when she was, traveling as an assassin and whatnot. And she decides to introduce it into this new town that she has settled in. There are other characters who are absolutely adorable, including a ratkin whose name I also cannot remember, who bakes. And so this book is filled with coffee and pastries, and you're going to need like a cinnamon roll and a good coffee every time you open this book, because it will make you crave all of the pastries, all of the cozy things. This is a fantastic winter book because yes, there are a few things that occur, but everything is very low stakes. It's very cozy. It's very hopeful. You know that it's a book where everything is going to be okay. There's nothing unfixable. There's nothing that we cannot return from that's going to happen in this book. And you just watch Viv you just see how soft this previously, hard, murderous woman was. You watch how soft she becomes and how much she truly cares about people. And this is another book that centers around the characters more than the plot and their growth and their connection. And this is another one that is full of found family, and it's got a coffee shop. Guys, it's a cozy fantasy book that takes place in a coffee shop. Like, what more do you need to know? And then finally, we have The Wonderful World of James Herriot. I love All Creatures Great and Small. I have not read the books. I've read through this one. I've just kind of picked like bits and pieces of it. I've not read the books, but we discovered the series on PBS, the newest one, and we are in love. It is so good. The kids and I, it is our favorite show. And when I found this book, I actually pre-ordered it from the UK because it was available there before it was here, and I had to have it. This one pulls stories, it's a collection of stories from all of the books that James Herriot wrote, as well as insights from his children and family. The cover alone screams heartwarming and delightful, and this is one that you can just escape into. It's also one you can dip in and out of. If you don't know, James Herriot was a country veterinarian, and he wrote a series of books that read like journals about his experience with the animals there and the people there, and multiple television series have been made based on his books. And I'm sure they're all delightful. We love the newest one with I can't remember his name, but Samuel West is in it too, and I love him dearly. His character is fantastic. It's a show that you can escape into as well. It's it's a delight. It's highly recommend the show. We pay for the PBS subscription solely for this show, and it is worth every penny. But this book just follows the same characters that are in the show. It's a collection from all of the books that he wrote, and the cool thing is you've also got some additional insight from his children, and then you have a few, I don't think that's clear, photos and things. There are several books. If you look up All Creatures Great and Small, in addition to the books that he wrote, there are others that sort of just give you a deeper look. We have one that focuses on the landscapes of the places where he worked, and there's also a companion to the show that's being made. I think it's called something from Scaledale House. They live in Scaledale House in the show, and really, really good. A series you can get lost in, books you can get lost in forever if you are interested in like the country living and veterinarian life and animals. This is a book that I'm sure you will love. And that's all the books that I have for today. There are plenty of others. I would love to hear what books you love to read during the winter. So if you want to drop those in the comments, I would love all of your suggestions. I'd love to know what winter sort of makes you reach for, and what you enjoy reading. So I hope that this little survival kit was helpful to you in getting through these cold, dark months, and happy reading. Cheers.